Well, all right, Brian, would I? Rory McIlroy PGA Tour Golf has now arrived. It arrived for those of us that have EA access on the Xbox One a few days ago. It arrives for the rest of the world on Tuesday. You and I both spent plenty of time playing it. So give me your initial thoughts on it, like right off the top. What are your initial impressions?
So I don't really consider myself a golf purist necessarily, but I have played many golfing games over the years. And because I kind of fall in that middle range between seeking an arcade game and seeking a pure simulation, Rory McIlroy PGA Tour should probably be right down my alley, right? It should be, because they're trying to make this game appeal to a more casual audience with the additions and what they've done with options in the game. That being said, nothing in the game really resonated with me very strongly. You start off with the prologue, which kind of walks you through, along with Rory McIlroy talking about some of the moments in the U.S. Open and playing some of those moments. And I actually thought that was fairly compelling, but it's over in 20 minutes. So you move on from that. And I kind of compare it to that opening cinematic that you played along with in Madden. I think it's a nice way to get you on board and into the feel of the game. But the emotion is lost after that, kind of, because there's so few modes and there's so few golfers and licensed courses. And what you do have in the career mode is very plain and basic. And then the online play I thought was horrifically terrible, the new design they have for the online play. And on the course, it's fun. I think it's fairly fun, I would say. And I enjoyed my time playing. And the courses look fantastic. Graphically, the courses look great. And that's one of the biggest improvements you can get over the previous generation with the Tiger Woods games. But besides that, I'm hard-pressed to find anything in this game that's better than the Tiger Woods series other than the visuals. I mean, that's what it comes down to, and I don't think that's really $60 worth of value there yet, especially when you consider there's only 8 real courses on the disc, 9 if you pre-order, and then a couple fantasy courses. So the graphics aren't really going to take over everything. You're going to say, well, that makes up for this really thin career mode, or that makes up for not having a Legends of the Majors type mode, which you had in Tiger Woods 14, those nods to the history of the sport, which are completely missing here. So I think what EA crafted was kind of a game that they wanted to appeal to different people, and they definitely did that with the various gameplay styles, giving you different ways to play. But at the end of that, you're still left with a game that doesn't feel like it has an identity. And I even wrote about this, I think it was like 3 months ago. I said, it was obvious that McIlroy was having an identity crisis, losing Tiger Woods, and how were they going to market this game now without him? And it was clear that they were going after this casual audience, and I just don't think you draw those people in with what they did, and I think you also alienate the sim-minded players and those who are looking for more content. So it's disappointing, because the potential is there, because it's still a fun game to play, but there's just not enough to really hold your interest for extended periods of time.
Well, let's start with what I think is the biggest strength for me personally with this game, and that is the mechanics. I really enjoy the different ways that you can attack the course. Right, you have the sort of the 3 pre-built gameplay option. There's arcade, there is something else. I think maybe it's called 3-click, and there's tour.
Yeah, classic is 3-click and then tour. Yeah.
And so I sort of dabbled in all 3, and there were things that I liked about them and things that I didn't. For example, in the 3-click, I really liked a couple of the options for, like, the zoom option, where you can sort of get a good idea where your ball is going to land, and I liked the reading of the greens. But I didn't love the actual 3 clicks. I thought that's where I would stay. But after probably my first 3 or 4 tournaments on the career mode tour, when the 3-click mechanic just killed me on the green, and I wound up blowing up holes, going from potential pars or even birdies to like double and triple bogeys because of different things that happened. I then wanted to try the tour mode, and while I really liked the left stick swing mechanic, which to me is very reminiscent of the golf club, which, as you know, Brian, is one of my
Sure.
favorite games of the last few years. But it also took away the zoom option and the reading of the green. So
Right.
ultimately, what I realized was, and what I appreciate very much, is the ability to customize it and to take the different things that you like from the three sort of pre-built ways to play the game, and I put them together. So now I've got the left analog stick, but I put on the zoom so I can sort of have an idea where the ball is going, and I kept on the reading of the greens. And while I know that purists or hardcore players will sneer at that, on the other hand, if you are a professional golfer, Brian Weedeye, reading a green is something that you do,
Uh-huh.
and professional golfers know very, very, very well, based upon the wind and the club that they're choosing, where their ball is going to go. So I don't feel that using those options is, somehow giving me a significant advantage. So at the end of the day, I really like the ability to sort of mix and match and pull the different things. And now I'm playing with a custom, the custom mechanics. I'm really just on the course enjoying that. So kudos to them, because that's not something that really has, I've been able to do a whole lot of in golf games in the past.
Yeah, it's a little ironic because tour mode, tour gameplay style is supposed to be the really hardcore simulation one, but it's much easier than the hardest version of playing in Tiger Woods the last few years. This tour mode is easy. Like, no matter how much you mess up the left stick, your shot almost always goes straight anyway. I mean, I haven't missed a single fairway. So there's some interesting things with that, and the classic 3-click mode, which shouldn't be the most difficult, but I've seen many people say that's the one that's the most difficult, that they have the most trouble playing with that. It just, if you miss it, you're going to miss. So you have to wonder what's going on with that, because classic shouldn't be the most difficult one, at least according to EA. And then, I'm not big into the arcade one, but I'll tell you, I like the options, and I think having the way to play different styles on the same game is something that other sports games should incorporate.
Well, I mean, MLB The Show is the best at it, and so this is very reminiscent to me of the way they can really tailor this game to how you like to do it. And the other thing that I found was, as I'm playing it, I'm sort of always making adjustments to where now that I found it. So, like, first starting versus where I am now, and I can even see making further adjustments as I get better and better. If I get to the point where you are, Brian, where you're just killing it and you're under par all the time, I'll probably make it more difficult, but I'm not there yet where you are.
Yeah, I don't think I'm very good at the game, but after the first 9 holes on tour, I mean, I've been shooting under par regularly. So it's just because the only time I struggle is on long putts, or if I hit into a bunker, something like that. So, but you mentioned the show. Even the show doesn't have an arcade mode, and we don't have arcade games anymore. So if the show had a mode where you could flip on arcade and it made home runs go 550 feet, or like in McIlroy, you have the arcade mode where you can add spin, change like the flight path. I mean, it's stuff that's not realistic, and so I'd like to see some of that stuff implemented in other games too, where you could just flip that on and play the game in a little different way. So I think the gameplay styles are actually one of the few things that McIlroy really got right in what they were trying to do in appealing to a more casual crowd, as well as trying to hold on to the simulation players.
So going from probably one of its strengths to something that, to me, the more you play it gets less appealing, is the career mode. I started out on the career mode. I was enjoying it at first. I liked the approach that they take with the quick rounds, where you play 5 or 6 holes in the first round, the second round it simulates left. When I say I like it, I mean it's an interesting way to approach it, in that you get a variety of the holes on the golf course, but you're not tied to playing 18 holes. It sort of makes it feel like you are playing on different days, you get a better feel for how the tournament is going. Like, you know, it used to be you choose, okay, well, how many rounds do I want to play? 1 round, 2 rounds, 3 or 4? You know, like in our friend Owen Good always plays full 18 holes, 4 rounds. So, you know, it's interesting. Again, it's not like groundbreaking or anything, but I liked it because, again, it sort of gave me a feel. And what's funny to me, Brian, is like my first 3 or 4 tournaments, I couldn't make the cut, and I could never make the cut because at least 1 hole, sometimes 2. Like I said, I went from you know, as what should have been a birdie or a par to like a double or triple bogey because the 3-click mechanic. Like sometimes I would be hitting the A button to get past the cut scene to get on the green, and then when you hit it, you know, I didn't realize I was there, and then there's no way to get out of it. So sometimes you go all the way up, and like a 3-foot putt would just go like, you know, 50 feet past it, and it would drive you nuts. So those were causing me problems. So then as I've sort of went to the different approaches, it's made that better. But the career mode itself, some really just, I mean, I guess it comes from the fact that there aren't that many courses, but it's very dry. You know what I mean? For all of the sort of setup that they do with the introduction and making you feel like, you know, you're gonna have an emotional connection to what's going on, and you're gonna feel like you're really a real golfer in the middle of something working his way up. There's none of that. It's a very dry presentation. The crowds are nice. They sound good. It gives a nice little bit of excitement, but overall, it's a very straightforward approach. There's, you know, the lack of courses really starts to show as you move through it, and all of a sudden you're playing the same course, you know, on the 10th or 11th, you know, tour or, you know, event of the tour. You're playing the second course. Like I played probably the Boston course at least 3 times so far. And you know and so that really starts to rear itself to where the more you play it, the less interesting it is, and you also have no idea where you are in the season. Am I halfway through? Am I a third through? Am I almost done? Like, it feels incomplete in both the number of courses that you're playing as well as just what you can do and where you even are in the world.
Oh, I absolutely agree with you on that. And you missed one other big point about career is the creative player is awful. I mean, you can't even choose. People have pointed out you can't choose facial hair. There's no facial hair. I mean, it's just basic stuff. They don't have a game face feature, with which Tiger Woods of the past had. So there's another thing you've lost. And Game Face is going to NBA Live instead, which is weird because if there's one game that needs the Game Face and needs a good creative player, it's golf, because 90% of the time you're playing as your own player, your guy, yourself. So that really hurts it too, is the really just terrible creative player.
I want to follow you up on that real quick. I'm going to be completely frank here. I don't care about that. Like, you know,
you don't care about just playing with. I mean, they do not look good either. Like
well, I want to be clear. I personally don't care about that. You know, I'll spend 30 seconds setting up my avatar. Like, I just want to play. Like, I want to go. I completely understand that that's important to some people, but I don't want to pretend like it's important to me. I didn't care. I'm like, yeah, whatever. You know, I would not have known unless you told me about how flimsy that is, because I just quickly X through it, because but I'm that way in any kind of a game. You know what I mean? Like when it comes to personalization of my character, I just want to get in and play. Unless I look completely ridiculous, it's a non-issue to me. Again, I understand how that's important to other people, but I'm not going to pretend to be upset by that because I could care less. But, you know, that's just a personal thing.
Yeah, it's such an element to the career mode, though. I'm surprised you just grab a generic guy and go.
I do that in my player in NBA 2K. You know, I just get the first guy and I go. It's just, you know, again, everybody has things that they like and they don't like. And to me, personalization of character, just could care less.
At least in those games, you've got full teams of rosters and so many other ways to play with guys that represent their real life selves, the licensed players. We've only got 12 golfers in this game.
Yeah.
So that's the other part of it, is that creative player kind of has to be a bigger part of it because there's so little else. But the career mode, you're right, the lack of courses really hurts. I mean, we've known this for weeks. We've known that the lack of courses would hurt career mode. And it really is. It's very basic. There's no calendar, like you mentioned. There's no calendar to look at upcoming events.
I kept looking for it. I'm like,
Yeah.
where am I? How many tournaments are left? How many have I played? What's my history? Like, none of that's on there. It's bizarre.
Yeah. So it reminds me a lot of, and I won't, it's not exactly comparable to UFC from last year, but that game had a very kind of basic career mode. It also didn't have game face. But there was more within that UFC product than we get with McIlroy. So I really think that that's one area that's a major weakness to this game. And the competition doesn't have a great career mode either. And they added that as DLC. So it's really rough. If you're into career modes, it's a rough time as a golfing fan, because neither of these products are really going to give you a enriching experience in playing through a career.
Well, in one area, and I've talked about it quite a bit, one area that the golf club excels is in its online play. Not necessarily just when you're playing online live with your friends, but just whenever you go into the golf club, you can play with your friends, even if they're not there. You can have an experience where you and I can be playing together. You might have played yesterday or a month ago, but I'm playing against your ghost, and I can see what you're doing, and there's always that sort of sense of community and competition. And so far, in what I've played, and I played quite a bit of it, there's none of that in Rory McIlroy PGA Tour. Like, you can play online with people. It's a very strange experience, and again, there's none of that social interaction with your friends, or if it's there, I haven't found it. It's one of those things that with the golf club that I didn't realize how much I would enjoy it, but now it's laid bare even more, sort of how lacking Rory McIlroy is in the online and in the friends integration so far.
Yeah, we even lost another popular feature, which is country clubs from Tiger Woods, because that was kind of the social experience that the Tiger Woods franchise had. So what EA did this year, and in theory, it makes some sense. They said, you're going to play online, and we're actually going to render your opponents on the course with you. So you would think that would make playing through it even more fun, is that you see your buddy, or you see your opponent just standing on the course where he's at. You see him taking a shot on the greens. You see the ball going and missing or going in. But I was streaming, and I said, okay, let's try it online. So I go on. Myself and three others playing through a course, and it was just absolutely dreadful. I mean, for a while I didn't see anyone, and then all of a sudden someone just popped in, just out of thin air, just popped in and just stood there, and then basically they vanished after another few seconds. I mean, it was a lot of that, and on the green, you have that happening. It's a distraction. That's all it was a distraction. And so that was really just an awful experience, this whole idea. It was better when they did the shot arcs, which is similar to what you get in the golf club, where you see what they shot, but it's just the arc. You don't see a player there, none of that popping in and popping out. And in addition to that, the online matches have no commentary, no crowd sound, so it's just completely dull. And I quit out after the first. I played through one course, and then I started up another, and then I got about 3 holes, and I'm like, I've seen enough of this. I don't need to put myself through this anymore. So the online, they do have tournaments and stuff, and I think if you're playing with friends and you're all on a microphone, it might be okay, it might be passable, but the design for online this year is just a failure. It's really terrible.
Yeah, I mean, it's clearly there are like tournaments. And I'm ready for tournaments, right? Like I enjoy playing in tournaments in golf games, not just in Rory McIlroy PGA Tour, but like for years we've had fun setting these things up in different kinds of golf games, and I enjoy that. So I'm hoping that offers some, once it becomes available to everybody, I'm hoping that offers some interesting ways to play the game, because it feels, again, like sort of the way that I feel like I want to play this game is I either want to play with my friends in real time, like you said, where we're all in a party and we're chatting and we're sort of experiencing the game together, or I want to chase scores in tournaments and things like that, but not with anybody else popping in or popping out, like you're saying, maybe
Yeah.
seeing their arcs and stuff. So, it is early. Obviously, it's just EA access right now. Perhaps kinks are still being worked out. It's entirely possible that the sort of pop in and pop out smooths out, at launch. I'm not saying it will. I'm not saying it won't. We don't know. But it's entirely possible that the actual design in the way that it's supposed to be is not coming across yet. It's also entirely possible that that's exactly how it's going to be. But even without that being said, what you said, the fact that there's like no commentary and it just
Which, by the way, the commentary, by the way, is one of the better parts of this game.
I disagree. Really? I disagree. Yeah, no, I'm not a huge fan of the commentary. I'm not saying it's awful or anything like that. But you notice when the commentary is not there during the online.
Oh, absolutely.
Barren.
It's dead. No crowd, too. The crowd noise is gone. I mean,
that's right.
It was that whole experience was just, it was dreadful.
Because when you're playing in a career mode, in a tournament, you hear the commentary, you hear the crowd, it sounds alive. Like, you feel like, okay, I'm in this thing. People are watching and paying attention and stuff like that. So yeah, the commentary, I'm not a huge fan of it. I'm not suggesting it's bad by any stretch. It's okay. Now, perhaps it's a nature because of my struggles on the green, for example, with the three-click mechanic. I continue to hear the same comment over and over again about how I'm like a plumber out there, and then the other guy says, "Oh yeah, it's like a bad dream. You got to wake up, wake up." Like I heard that just the first night. I heard that 4 or 5 times. I hear it constantly. So, other than that, I'm not. I'm not. The commentary doesn't do anything for me really. Like I'm not. It's not a positive. It's not a negative. Like what? It's interesting comparing it to the golf club, right, where you just got your buddy who's basically talking to you there. It's interesting. It's a different approach, and we've had this conversation a lot about, the concept of a television presentation versus I am experiencing it, right? Like, if you think about it, the way that it's presented to you in Rory McIlroy PGA Tour is kind of ludicrous in that you are the golfer, but you're hearing the television commentary. It should be like you should be interacting with your caddy almost, you know what I mean? Like, but in sort of the pursuit of the television presentation, you're playing as a golfer, but you're watching yourself on TV and hearing.
Well, EA tried it. EA tried it with Madden 06, the radio announcer. They had the radio announcer, and I mean they've tried different angles on the commentary, and I think everybody just kind of settled on television presentation type commentary as the style they prefer.
Yeah, and again, to me, it's not a positive. It's not a negative. It's just it's I'm neutral on the commentary, but I'm definitely not impressed by it. I think the other just another thing that I've been sort of debating about how much I like or don't like are some of the little in between things, like the cutscenes when you're walking with your caddy. The first few times, like, oh, that's nice. I
want to turn that stuff off, Rich.
But yeah, now I'm at the point where I don't want that. That's what happens when I'm like, oh, now I'm hitting the A button, and oh no, I started putting. And
the celebrations that your guy does, right?
The robot, the robot.
Awful. Yeah, sink a 3-foot putt for a par, and you do the robot. I mean, this is kind of what we've been talking about for months now, is that direction of them trying to appeal to a different crowd, because this is not realistic. These are not realistic celebrations you're going to see Jordan Spieth and Rory McIlroy and Tiger Woods or whoever doing when they're playing in real life.
Yeah, it's just strange. And again, the first time I saw it, I was like, oh, kind of chuckle. The second time, I'm like, and the third or fourth time, I'm like, really? Like, again,
it's irritating.
Yeah, and that's why I'm just like, okay, let's just move on, and not have that. It's just an interesting setup. So let's talk a few other things, right? So we talked a little bit online. We talked about the career mode. Those are sort of the core aspects of the game. Did you try the Battlefield golf course?
Yeah.
So what did you think about that?
Yeah, actually, on youtube.com/PastaPadre, you will find a full 18-round run with I used Jordan Spieth on the Battlefield 4 course for all 18 holes. Went through the whole thing, and it's kind of a cool course. Like if they had put that much time into to other courses, like some other fantasy courses, I would have played those too. I mean, I thought it was kind of fun and different. But it's a par 3 course, so every hole is par 3, which is kind of unique too. But there's only one hole, and it's hole number 3, that is really just out there, where you actually have to hit it off the carrier to get onto the green. Other than that, it's more just kind of being in that different environment, which I thought was kind of cool. So I actually liked the course, and no, I wouldn't have marketed the game around it like they did by unveiling the. At the time, it was just called PGA Tour, unveiling it with about a aircraft carrier crashing into a course. That's not how that really got it off to the wrong tone. But I think it's a nice addition, and it's one of the few unique kind of touches that are in this game that actually I think works to an extent. It's just not how I would have portrayed this product as being about that, which it kind of was at first.
And what about the nightclub mode? What did you think about that?
Yeah, I didn't like it at first. I thought it was dull. And then you get into it a little further, and you start getting these power-ups, and you have to use them in different ways, and you can only choose 3. And they use a different amount of your energy, so you're limited on how and when you can use them. And some of the stuff in there is a little bit fun. I mean, is it something I'd sit down and continue playing? No. It feels to me like what I'd play on my phone in concept and everything. It feels like a mode that came from a phone. So it doesn't work for me long term, but as I was playing through it, I was like, this is fairly fun. I wouldn't go back and try to perfect each one as I completed them. If I got 1 star, I was like, okay, on to the next, because it's, again, that mobile kind of 1 or 2 or 3 stars that you get in an Angry Birds type of thing where, oh, well, I want to go back and perfect that. So completionists and people who are into topping their own scores and stuff like that might enjoy it, but I didn't think it was that great. And there's like 5 fantasy, created characters that you can use in there that are a little different from one another, but 3 of them are locked at first, so you have to unlock them also through the process. I don't know. It didn't work for me. It certainly wasn't something I'd say, this is why I would buy Rory McIlroy PGA Tour. It's a fun diversion in a sense, but it's not something I'd play long term. And I don't know if it really appealed to that many people other than those who like those type of games on their phone.
Yeah, see, the problem that I'm having with it is that I'm, writing up a review for Games Radar, and so I have to go through every single mode, and I'm in that mindset. Yeah. It's like, all right, I got to try this, and try this, and I just, perhaps it's because I had to try it. I did not enjoy Nightclub Mode. Perhaps once I'm finished with the review and I go back to it, I might, when that pressure is off and I'm not just thinking about it in terms of, okay, what am I going to say, and is this good or not, and when I'm just like, all right, I'm just going to play this for fun, perhaps I'll get more out of it, but I just did not enjoy it. It did not appeal to me. I didn't get very far either, because after the second or third of the items, I'm just like, well, yeah, I'm bored. That's me. I'm a very particular kind of a guy. Like when it comes to any big time sports game, I really like to just get in and play the real game. Whether it's our online franchise in Madden, like I don't play the gauntlet. I just want to play the game. When it's NBA 2K, I want to play my season or my player. And when PGA Tour golf, I want to play golf on the PGA Tour. Like that's sort of my thing. So that's why I tend to not go in the direction of these other versions.
This is my other issue with the mode, is that unlike the gauntlet, which you just mentioned there, or various mini games and other sports games, this won't playing through Nightclub Challenge won't make you better at Rory McIlroy PGA Tour on normal courses. It's not really teaching you anything because you're using these power-ups that you don't use anywhere else.
Right.
You're not going to be steering your ball on the ground with a power-up when you're playing through normal courses.
That's right.
You're not going to be dodging moving objects and like trying to all this stuff that you're not going to have these turbo boosts in the air. All this stuff that won't apply to actually playing the game. So it's unlike many mini games or different types of tutorials that kind of incorporate mini games. This one won't make you better at McIlroy. And I think that's the biggest issue for me with it is if I could play through it and feel like, okay, now I'm going to shoot straighter. Now I'm going to Now I'm going to putt better. Now I'm going to do this stuff because I learned new things through the process. Then it would be worthwhile. But it's just something that's thrown in there, and you're not going to get much out of it.
Yeah, I completely agree. And perhaps that's why at the end of the day, it doesn't really do anything for me. And the funny thing is, for all the sort of negativity surrounding this conversation, I'm going to tell you, Brian, I do like this game. I don't love it. Mm-hmm. I do like it. I like the way that once I really enjoy, for example, the draw and the fade mechanics too. How you really do have a lot of influence over, how to approach the shots, and I think that has opened up the game for me. Now, again, I've been spoiled by the golf club, and I like the mechanics of that game more than this one, but at least I do have a feeling like I do have control over where I'm going and what I'm trying to do with the ball.
It's a friendlier game than the golf club. It's easier to absolutely. And so
yes.
So it does appeal to, if you just want to pick up and play, this is a much easier game, and you're going to have more success, and because of that, for some people, you're going to have more fun with it. And as I was playing through and doing well, after the first 9 holes I played on the tour gameplay style, I was like, well, I'm enjoying myself because I'm doing well. And I think it almost feels like it's designed in that way to make it fairly easy for people not just to pick up and play, but to succeed at, so they don't get discouraged. And then those who still struggle at it can go to the arcade mode, the arcade gameplay style, or try the 3-click, which turns out is for some reason the most difficult. And plus the meter, I have to mention this, the meter on the 3-click is too slow. It's annoyingly slow. So that bothered me. I think I'm just used to using, meters and kicking and Madden and stuff where it's much faster. Yeah. But so I think it's a friendlier game. It's easier for people to enjoy, but is there enough there in the product to enjoy it long term? I think that's where it really falls apart.
Yeah, I agree. I think in its current state, and this is where I want to sort of end, is having a little bit of a discussion about post-current state. But in its current state, Rory McIlroy PGA Tour golf feels to me like it's incomplete in every way. It feels like the career mode is sort of incomplete. It certainly feels like the online is incomplete. It just doesn't feel like anything is completely built out in the way that most AAA sports games are. But even with that said, I like video game golf, and I am having fun with it to a degree. I would be surprised if in its current state, in 60 or 90 days, that I return to it like I returned to the golf club. And again, it's a lot about how I can just hop in the golf club and play with, or against my friends right away. The golf club has virtually infinite variety of courses. Now, conversely, when you have an infinite number of courses, you don't get familiar with any of them. You will certainly be able to get familiar with courses in PGA Tour, for better or for worse. So I guess I want to sort of end our initial impressions and review discussion on this. Brian, what do you think this game will be like in 60 or 90 or 120 days? Like, do you feel this is going to be a UFC-style situation where there are going to be consistent and significant updates to rosters and courses and things like that? I mean, what do you think we're going to be saying about this game in 60 or 90 days? Because, boy, once the fall games come out, a lot is going to have to happen, in my opinion, to PGA Tour golf for any of us to revisit it, after August, September, and all the big games come out.
Yeah, first of all, this is not going to be UFC because it's not the same situation. In UFC, they added fighters which were already included under the UFC license. In McIlroy, if they want to add golfers, they have to go out and pay individually for each golfer, and they have to create them. If they want to add courses, they have to put a lot of work into courses. The UFC was not adding arenas and things of that nature. So are they going to add stuff? Yeah, they've already tweeted they're going to add stuff. They haven't, suspiciously, they haven't said anything about what they're going to add or when or how much it's going to end up costing. They're going to add some stuff. They're going to add some courses, certainly. Some of them are going to be free. Then they're going to start doing the paid stuff because, look, there's no way they can keep adding courses for free. It's not, like I said, it's not the UFC situation. They're going to add golfers. I think it's going to end up, there's going to be some free editions and there's going to be some paid editions, and that's going to be happening over the next 6 months. They supported UFC for, I think, about 9 months. I suspect that's what they'll do with this game. Now, how much that transforms McIlroy, if that changes it into a game that people want to buy, I'm not sure. But by that point, it's going to be cheaper, or it's going to be in EA Access Vault where you don't even have to pay for the game outright. And then that's why that paid DLC is going to be such a big deal, because they're going to put it in EA Access at some point. And for UFC, it was only after like 6 months or so. But then they're going to have stuff you can buy, 15 more courses that you can buy or something along with that, so they can make money that way too. So I think that's the long-term strategy, is you're going to get people on board now who they can. Unfortunately, it's not going to be as many as they could have done if this game was, if you look at my poll from last week of how much the impact of the lack of courses and golfers on this game, half the people, 2,000 out of 4,000, said they weren't going to buy the game solely because of the lack of courses and golfers. So they're missing out on a lot of people right now. Can they potentially bring them back? Yeah, but it's not going to be they're not going to be as valuable for EA unless they end up spending money on DLC. And so that's where we're going to be heading. And I don't know if that's going to be enough for people, or if people are going to move on. There are too many sports games coming out, like we talked about many times, in September and October, for this game to get a lot of publicity over that period of time, no matter if they add stuff or not. They may have just missed the boat on it. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, though, because I'm sure EA is going to try to bring it back to a level that's more respectable.
Will definitely be interesting, and I, for one, am glad that it's here. Right? I mean, this is July. This is the time of year where we would traditionally see NCAA football. This fills in that gap. It's still basically a couple of months from the time that this is released until Madden comes out. I'm enjoying the game. It is a limited enjoyment, but it is an enjoyment nonetheless. I'm certainly not suggesting that anyone run out and buy this. It's certainly a buyer beware situation. I like video game golf. I have for a long time, and I'm glad that this game is out there. I'm enjoying my experience, but by no means am I satisfied, if that makes sense. It's something where there's some good stuff here at the foundation, but boy, it just feels like it could be so much more, and maybe it will be so much more in the future. But for right now, the debut of Rory McIlroy PGA Tour Golf is one of limited success, I think, is probably the most fair statement that we can make.